Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of 3 idiots. Their 300-hour mission? To beat one of the most arduous mods ever created. To automate on strange new worlds. To seek out new factories and new resources. To boldly expand where no man has built before. Space exploration. Perhaps the most infamous Factorio mod, where runs can take anywhere between 200 and 500 hours. It's not the hardest Factorio mod, that crown still goes to Pyanodons, but that doesn't mean it should be taken lightly. The percentage of people who start space exploration runs and actually finish them has to be in the decimals. And that's why, in the interest of getting this video out sometime this year, I've enlisted the help of these 2 AIs that I've totally programmed. This will be a tremendous help as I try to get through this mod, and, well, it seems they're not all that intelligent, so I'll still need to do most everything myself. Which is just as well, since I'm the one making the video. Anyway, the first thing you might realize after starting a space exploration run is that you have no electric miners, no yellow inserters, or even any electricity at all. For a mod that promises interstellar space travel, it sure starts out about as low-tech as it can get. Everything's all coal-powered. Technically, this part of the mod is from AAI Industry, which I've talked about in my Factorio City video, but while it doesn't change much, escaping this burner phase will easily take a couple hours. I suggest bringing some AI slaves of your own to help manually mine everything. It doesn't even let you craft science in your inventory anymore. At least the animation on the burner assemblers are cool. I've also got the Milestones mod, which tells us that it's taken 9 minutes to craft the first red science. Since we're going to be burning a lot of things, the mod is kind enough to give us a specialized machine that processes fuel and turns it into better fuel. If you're determined enough, you might just manage to scrounge together enough red science to research electricity, but not steam power. Instead we get these inefficient burner generators. But hey, it's better than using burner inserters. Everything's better than burner inserters. I send the minions off to do some scouting, and that ends about as well as you'd expect. Anyway, now we've got assemblers that run on electricity. The only problem is they take forever to craft by hand, so our first priority is automating them, at least halfway. It's hand-fed, but it goes a long way to saving time. These small engines and motors are super important for all the early game buildings. Like inserters, which we'll need several hundred of. Unfortunately, we're still dependent on burner miners, which we'll try to solve by automating them. Where this differs from the base game is that you can't make any of the advanced buildings without its predecessor, meaning we can't make electric mining drills without first feeding in a burner mining drill. And with a recent expansion, the natives have started to object. Unlike the base game, your health almost never regenerates, so you need to use these medkits. Back at base, we've got some green science up, even if it is just one assembler. It's already taken us an hour to get this far, and we've barely scratched the surface. We're still stuck hand-feeding things, but with a good supply of belts and inserters, we can finally start thinking about scaling up. This is just your average furnace stack, 48 furnaces to output a full yellow belt of smelted ore. As effective here as it is in the base game. Except, we don't really have a belt of ore yet, but there's a really nice mine right above it. Which seems like a perfect job for one of the minions. We'll also need coal to power the furnaces. It's a little far, but this is why you automate belt production. Of course we want to process it first. With that, we'll get a good 20% more burn for our buck. Now we just plug in the ore and we've got fully automated iron production. But man cannot automate on iron alone, so we need another lane for copper. And so we built some in from the northwest. Ignore that thing called a core seam, we'll get to that later. With all these miners running, our old generators just can't keep up. Fortunately, we've researched steam power. Then I add some more lanes, because I'll need stone and glass soon. I can't start fully automating everything just yet, because in this mod you need stone bricks for all the basic buildings like assemblers and mining drills. But after looking at our pollution spread, I suddenly decided it would be prescient to start automating ammunition. And gun turrets. I wouldn't recommend trying to take out the early bases without them. The temporary build straight off the iron line starts spreading like a cancer as I need more inserters and belts. At least I don't need to hand feed them anymore. It continues to spread as I automate underground belts and splitters too. At least now, with a better supply, I can focus on getting the rest of the resources. I probably should have made a smaller build before going full scale like this, but I'm stubborn like that. I leave actually plugging the ore in up to the other two, so I can focus on making science. Red science is extremely easy, it's just a gear plus a copper plate. The green science, however, is a little more complicated compared to its vanilla counterpart. And that's because, while it still takes yellow inserters, you need to make the burner inserters too. If you came to this video to see optimal Factorio designs, you've come to the wrong place. But with belts and inserters, that's all we need for green science. This is where I'd put some labs, if I had any. The electric labs take glass, which I haven't even automated yet. Thankfully, one of the minions arrives just in time. After supplying science by hand for the past 3 hours, having it fully automated feels great. And in the meantime, we've got steel and brick set up, and now I can finally automate assembling machines. Because remember, you need burner assemblers to make electric assemblers. This terrible base layout is starting to metastasize. I need to do something. I don't want to be stuck with this all the way to space, but I think I can hold on a little bit longer to make some cars. The Alien Biomes mod makes you walk way slower on tiles like sand, and guess where our base is built? The occasional stone path helps mitigate this, but cars are way better. Also, the processed fuel is really good for the cars. It's almost as good as rocket fuel. Alright, this whole thing sucks. It's going bye-bye. Good enough. I'll leave the science there. Time to introduce a little organization. First thing I'm making are circuits. Unlike the base game, they take these stone tablets made out of bricks instead of iron. I actually like the change. Makes more sense to use stone than it does iron anyway. The next thing I want is concrete, because it's actually a necessary ingredient in a lot of buildings. Normally you only need this stuff for nuclear power plants and the rocket silo, but in this mod it's used in some very important early game things like big electric poles. Forcing the player to make concrete early on like this, and making unpaved tiles slow you down, is a good way to encourage actually paving the base. I've still got some supplies from the old build, but I'm gonna need more. And now for the third time in 3 videos, I'm going to apologize for using this design. But hey, it's not my fault as the easiest way of setting up a mall in space exploration. It can even take 6 belts of input. If you want to know more about this abomination, I suggest you watch my beltless Factorio video. Suffice to say, it's a very convenient way of dealing with this mod's telescopic recipes. You can also do this with the warehouses this mod adds, but I'm sticking with trains. Well, with that automated, it's time we moved on to getting some oil. Fortunately, my minions have been working on that while I was busy. For better or worse. While they finish that up, I'm just gonna build military science. We're gonna need the ammo soon anyway, and it doesn't hurt to have some walls laying around. We can even upgrade them into better walls with concrete. Now I just need to run a giant stupid belt from the coal mine to the grenade factories. And that's military science. Look, they've managed to make plastic. That means it's time for advanced circuits. So I route some more green circuits. Remember, this is just my starter base, it's allowed to look terrible. If you've ever played Factorio, you've probably realized that you always need more red circuit assemblers than you think. Some nests popped up nearby, so we just crash into them with our new flame tumbler. Nice. The biters are getting a little annoying, but there's something we can do to help. Efficiency modules are a lot stronger. They're pretty cheap to make, and just 2 of them is enough to drop the energy consumption of any building to its minimum. You can see that the mines are a hotspot of pollution, but just dropping 2 of those in every miner is enough to reduce pollution by over 80%. These advanced circuits will also let us make stuff like substations and stack inserters. And now it's time for chemical science, and that means engine units. We just need some single-cylinder engines, gears, and some steel. That just leaves sulfur. In the base game, you need maybe 2 or 3 chemical plants making sulfur, but space exploration is a little different. Anyway, just plug it all in and we've got chemical science. This is the part where I start automating things anywhere they'll fit, and make some explosives so we can finally get rid of cliffs. It's a mess, but it works. I can also diversify into less friendly explosions. Now that I've got advanced oil processing, I'm gonna need to deal with cracking. This is really annoying to set up without robots, which is why we're making those next. Just put some circuit conditions on the pump and we're ready to crack. It might be pipe routing hell, but it works. For the robots, we'll need some sulfuric acid and batteries. Just like sulfur, this mod requires a lot more batteries than usual. We'll also need some of these small electric motors so we can turn them into big electric motors, which we'll also need lubricant for. These motors aren't really used in science, but they are necessary to make like every kind of advanced building. Also, unlike usual, these flying robot frames aren't needed to make utility science, but that doesn't make you want them any less. And I managed to squeeze some Roboport automation in here. Just like you can measure real life in BC and AD, you can also measure Factorio bases in BB and AB, before bots and after bots. Not only does this make building a lot easier, but it also automatically repairs your base whenever the mod decides to throw a meteor at it. Trying to add another lane of copper to the forges, I suddenly realized I screwed up the spacing. But it's nothing some good old-fashioned belt weaving can't fix. Good enough. I've also automated accumulators and solar panels. They're actually needed for science, but we'll get to that. And the first step to getting to that is making this heat shielding stuff. It takes stone tablets, steel, and sulfur. Quite a bit of sulfur, actually. We'll need this stuff later, but for now it lets us make electric furnaces. And then I shove some more automation wherever it'll fit. I'm sure I'll get around to using these trains eventually. Isn't the base beautiful? Since we've got this many solar panels, we might as well use them. Solar panels are pretty crap unless you're building them in the thousands, but that's exactly what we're doing. As long as you use a tileable build that integrates roboports, you can just let the robots handle everything. With that, we've transitioned completely to solar, so our pollution is way down. But there's still one more big source, it's those steel forges. So let's just get rid of them. Unsurprisingly, it takes a while, but it's better than doing it by hand. With the whole place cleared, we can replace them with futuristic electric furnaces. And with bots, we can just copy-paste. Multiple times. Also gotta rebuild the crushers that make the sand for the glass. Electric furnaces spew out way less pollution, and unlike the steel furnaces, we can fill them with modules. But we all know the real reason I upgraded is because I wanted to remove that belt-weaving abomination. Just look at that pollution graph. Thanks to our aggressive anti-pollution efforts, we haven't had much issue with the biters expanding, because apparently the biters never considered that we might start expanding. We need more iron and more crude oil. And then I died. It's okay, the bots will fix it. They broke my car. Well, I got my stuff back, but I'm stuck out here. Except, this is why it pays to have minions. Also, there's jetpacks in this mod. Just fly over everything. Hopefully this will help our iron problem. If only there was a better way to move large amounts of resources long distances. Oh well. That'll help, for now. Remember when I talked about those core seams? Well, this is what they're for. You put a core miner on them, which creates core fragments. And then you can crush those core fragments and get a ton of garbage in return. It requires an enormous 25 megawatts to run, and spews out 200 pollution per minute, which is probably more than our entire furnace array. But unlike regular mines, it never runs out. Sorting out all of its byproducts is a pain, but it's a great way to ease the burden on your regular mines. Because normally, the further you are from the center, the richer the ore patches become, but not in space exploration, and this mod is a long one. You'll be drying out dozens of ore patches before you're through. Since it gives you everything, you'll also need to do with the excess. And unfortunately, the only way to do that is to turn it into landfill. Now we just want to plug it into our lanes with an input priority splitter. That way it'll use the core mining stuff before anything else. Crude oil and water is also a byproduct, so we gotta get rid of that stuff too. So there's another byproduct I didn't mention, something called pyroflux. We can't do anything with it yet, except turn it into steam, which would help pay for its 25 megawatt power bill, but I think I'd rather stockpile it, because, while it might not be useful now, it just might be in the future. So yeah, that's core mining. With our ore supply taken care of, it's time to build a rocket. Now some of you might be asking, but Dosh, where's the production and utility science? You need those before you can build a rocket. Well, not in this mod, you don't. Up until now, space exploration has been pretty comparable with vanilla Factorio, but this is where it starts to deviate a little, and by a little I mean a lot. For starters, there is no production or utility science. Well, there is, but I'll get to that. Anyway, for the rocket we'll need these low-density structures and rocket control units. This is probably one of the last times I can compare any part of this mod with the base game, but the LDS take twice the plastic, and the RCUs take 10 times the sulfuric acid. And when we throw in the heat shielding and the rocket fuel, you might notice that this process is extremely oil-hungry. Speaking of rocket fuel, here's rocket fuel. It uses these special fuel refineries, and it only takes 1 second to craft, so this is definitely overbuilding it. And here's this guy working on the oil that we'll definitely need. With heat shielding, LDS, RCUs, and rocket fuel, we have everything we need to assemble our rocket. Except for one thing, if you want to get anything out of this, we gotta launch it with a satellite. And it takes quite the assortment, especially with requester chests. Fortunately, I've got 2 of the ingredients right here, and I already put solar panels and accumulators on belts. Another 2 I can pull off the bus, and that just leaves the radars, which requires its own mix of garbage, but it's garbage I've got on hand. And that's our satellite. Now we just need a rocket to put it in. Now you may have noticed that this is actually called a satellite rocket silo, and that's because instead of winning the game, all this thing does is launch satellites. This is where we get the key ingredient for the next stage of science: rocket science. Contrary to what that achievement says, no, we did not beat the game. And then I get a rather interesting alert telling me a weapons cache has been found. That it has. And I've also apparently unlocked the ability to see everywhere. I guess my satellite is also a government spy drone. So, I want that weapons cache. Unfortunately, it's in the middle of a nest of biters, but check this out. They never saw it coming. So the spoils were a couple of requester chests, which is great because I haven't even researched them yet, but also this gun called a railgun. Let's see how good it is. I'm thinking it's pretty good. Anyway, back to the science. We've managed to harvest from space this stuff called satellite telemetry. We only get 100 of these per launch, but that's still enough to make 800 rocket science. Still, doesn't hurt to have more, so let's launch another satellite. And it seems to have found something else. In space this time. Now if we hit U, this menu pops up, and that's certainly something. It seems whatever this place used to be isn't, functional anymore. This is the first glimpse into the true scope of this mod. This place is mostly just trash, but there's certainly some interesting things in these boxes up here. And while I was gawking at space, a bunch of biters showed up to take advantage of my lapse in attention. Anyway, that stuff in space, it only exists to taunt us. We have no way of getting up there right now. But now I'm determined. Let's get this rocket science up. We've got the hardest part done, but the second hardest are these electric furnaces. Mostly because they require stone and steel furnaces as well. And because the actual recipe only takes 1 of these every 80 seconds, I only need 1 assembler. That leaves one last ingredient. Speed modules. And the modules in this mod are kind of bizarre. Case in point, these speed modules take solid fuel to make. Every tier of every module takes one special ingredient. Fortunately, we're already close by to where I make the rocket fuel, but that's even more oil demand from this mod. Because of that, I'm forced to set up 2 new oil fields. After spending like an hour on that, let's make some rocket science. It doesn't look like we've unlocked much, but that's because it's all hiding behind this processing unit research. And I'm so excited to get them, I start building it before the research is even done. I won't need too many of these. Believe it or not, this is still the starter base. In addition to that, we've unlocked this building called a life support facility. What, you thought we could breathe in space? You're crazy. With this, we can make life support canisters. Just one of the many preparations we'll need to make before we can actually get to space. I'm also using one of those precious requester chests I found. That one on the left decontaminates used canisters. But you can't just use life support canisters, you need this life support equipment, which we use to make this thruster suit. It's effectively the same as power armor, and now I can finally get some exoskeletons. So I launch another satellite, and it tells me I've found an asteroid belt. If you keep launching them, you'll keep finding these planets and stuff. They're places just like Navis, but they all have their quirks. This moon, for example, has 0 biters and a ton of crude oil. Flip side of that is it's almost got no stone or copper. And looking at the rest, it's got these 2 weird resources we've never heard of. I'm sure we'll need it later, but we can't even get to orbit, let alone another planet. But using our government spy satellite, we can remotely view the surface. And as advertised, that certainly is a lot of oil. So if we ever want to reach places like that, we're going to need a rocket. And not that dinky little satellite rocket, we need a real rocket. And that's where the cargo rocket comes in. And making one isn't exactly the easiest task. First, we'll need cargo rocket sections. And not only do they take RCUs, LDS, and heat shielding, but these 2 things as well. But it's not actually that complicated, seeing as it's mostly iron, steel, and advanced circuits. You just gotta get a little creative. Well, that's the hard part done. Now we just need to plug in the same stuff that feeds our satellite rocket. And there's the silo. Makes the satellite silo look pretty wimpy in comparison. You may have noticed that it's got some tubes on the front, and that's for the liquid rocket fuel. So to actually build the rocket, we need to insert 100 cargo rocket sections into its inventory. Anything over 100 just fills the rocket's inventory normally, but we don't want to keep inserting sections we don't need. Unfortunately, the rocket silo has circuit signals that tell it how many cargo sections have already been loaded. We read that and only let these inserters load cargo sections so long as there's less than 100 already loaded. And with the fuel and the cargo sections sorted out, there's one last thing we need. The space capsule. Its ingredients are very similar to the satellite. We only need one of these to launch a rocket. Back at the silo, you can see we've already got enough liquid rocket fuel and almost enough cargo sections. To the left you can see a bunch of data on our rocket, including its destination, Navis Orbit. By the way, 1 solid rocket fuel gives you 50 liquid rocket fuel, so just getting to orbit requires 1,000 of them. And that's our first rocket ready to go. As we prepare to build bases separated by several million kilometers of cold dead space, we'll probably want some way of communicating with them, and that's where this signal receiver comes in. With one of these, we can receive signals from anywhere, but it's pretty much useless without a transmitter. But we'll get there. Now, it's not that I'm not excited to jump into a flaming metal death trap, it's just that I've realized our base is mostly undefended, and going to space means I won't be around to deal with it anymore. So it's about time I just accepted that I'm going to need to build a wall. Nothing major though, our solar-powered base barely produces any pollution, which is why we got this far without defenses in the first place. Now we can go to space in peace. So I've filled this rocket with like 500 slots of garbage I might need, since it's not like I've got access to my supply lines up there. But anyway, let's finally get up there. My rocket ain't looking so good. Well, that's exciting. I guess that's what happens when you don't have a landing pad. Well, time to clean up my mess. So, who knows what happened up here, but it's probably safe to assume it was caused by engineers much worse than us. At least they left us some useful stuff. And even more crazy powerful guns. Some of this stuff is crazy advanced. Like, we won't be able to make half of this stuff even in 100 hours. Next time I'm up here, I don't want to crash, so let's put down a landing pad. Also, it may not look like it, but there is power up here thanks to those solar panels up there and that pylon with its crazy transmission range. In space exploration, each planet has its own day-night length and solar efficiency, and up here in orbit, it's always day and a single solar panel is about 5 times as effective as it is on Navis. Time to make an archaeologist somewhere cry. I need the space. In case it wasn't obvious, I can't build on nothing, so this asteroid is going to be my home for now. All clean. This is all we get, but if we need more space, we can always use scaffolding. Here's a recycling machine to get rid of all the scrap that my flaming wreckage caused. There's also a resource up here called water ice, and we can mine it just like anything else. Except we can't actually use it, not without this thing. You see, you can't use most manufactories in space, you need special ones. This one's basically a chemical plant in space. But we can't research it yet, not without space science. And that's the reason we're up here, as it always is, to make science. I've already got 3/5 of the ingredients with me, but we need to make these transport belts and cosmic water. Both of them take lubricant, and since there's not much oil in space, we're gonna need to bring it in from Navis. Fortunately, there's these delivery cannons. With these we can shoot barrels of fluid directly into orbit and catch them in these special chests. They are pretty power hungry, and can only send 1 stack at a time, but it's better than wasting a cargo rocket. You can't ship everything like this, mostly just raw materials. Just like the belts, we need special space pipes as well. They're actually worse than normal pipes, but they're the only ones that work in space, so you don't have much choice. Cosmic water's pretty simple. We make it in a decontamination facility. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, we can't use that water ice yet, so we're gonna need to bring it in just like the lubricant. And that's everything we need for space science, at least a little of it. We can only make it in this giant space manufactory, but this thing crafts super fast, so don't worry about it. And that is our space science. Now we just shove it in this giant disco ball. If you value your sanity, don't look inside. This is where the mod really starts. This thing goes through research at a snail's pace, but it's still a pace. Now we can finally get things like express belts, assembler 3s, and artillery, but requester chests and beacons are nowhere to be found. But I've done enough up here, it's time to go back home. And we can do that by just hopping into our trusty space capsule. Nice. It's possible to use the space capsule to get back into orbit, but cargo rockets are still the best. That was some research called vulcanite processing. Might be useful later. Mostly we're down here to deal with a bunch of errands like setting up uranium processing and adding some new mines and oil. Something I've mostly spared you from, but it's worth reiterating just how persistent a problem running low on resources is, especially oil. We've tapped out pretty much every ore field in these walls already. Anyway, even though we have space science, it's not really automated, and that's because to make anything in space, first we need to make the components down here, and then ship them up to space via cargo rocket. You can manually load them, like I've done here, or try to load them with belts, but that creates the problem of knowing what you actually need up there. But as you may have guessed seeing these combinators around here, there is a better way. I forgot to select the landing pad, so I'll tell you as soon as we're done crashing. Remember the signal receiver down by the rocket? Well, this is the signal transmitter. And using this, we can keep our surface base constantly informed about everything we've got up here in orbit. But we can do better than that. We can create a system where we set certain levels of whatever items we want up here so that they're automatically added to the rocket down on Navis. And to do that is relatively simple. By reading all of the items with a circuit and multiplying it by -1, we can then add that to a constant combinator. The constant combinator simply contains the amount of any item we want as a positive value, and when that's added to the actual amount, if the number is still positive, that means we have a deficit of that item. Here's the values from our space base, except down on Navis. The items we're missing being positive is important, because then I can plug those values into this requester warehouse and set the mode of operation to set requests. Suddenly, those positive values are turned into requests that our logistics bots will take care of automatically. As they're loaded into the rocket, you can see the filters go down because we factor in the rocket's inventory as well. Once this box has no more requests, we'll know that the rocket's inventory plus the supplies in space is greater than or equal to the amount we sent in the constant combinator. And that is an automatically replenishing supply rocket. Space exploration. If you don't know circuits going in, you'll know them going out. And if I want something else up here, I simply add it to the combinator. We need more power, so here's more solar. Did I mention we need a lot of oil? Well, we need a lot of oil. Oh yeah, rockets will just crash on their own sometimes. You just gotta live with it. Why am I storing all this steam? Find out later. Okay, so now what? We work on the next science, of course, but this is where it starts to get complicated. For starters, both of these sciences need resources that aren't even on this planet. Not to mention all the weird stuff like thermofluid, plasma stream, and machine learning data. Also, hi production and utility science, you're looking a little different since I last saw you. The only real similarity is the name. Anyway, I don't know much about the other stuff, but I do know that these rough substrates are needed to make the machine learning data. Something else we'll need are iron ingots, which can only be made inside of an industrial furnace by turning iron ore into molten iron using pyroflux. Yep, we've finally got a use for that red stuff we've been stockpiling. After that, we can turn the molten iron into ingots using a casting machine. By the way, you can see written on the back of them the words placeholder. All I need to do is put the finished ingots into a provider chest, and my bots will handle the rest. And my rocket crashed again. This is only like a 2% chance, by the way. So another ingredient we need in our grand journey is something called chemical gel. We just need to shoot some petroleum gas into orbit. In spite of the stronger solar in orbit, we're still having power problems up here, so the first use of this chemical gel will be to make better solar panels. They're a bit bigger, but they produce 400 kilowatts instead of 60, which means in terms of space, they're 5 times more efficient. Also, you can walk on them. So I can set up everything to make the next sciences, but I still won't have those extraplanetary resources I need. If only there was some way to do them both simultaneously. Oh yeah, I have minions for that. So he's gonna work on that while I build the science. The day-night cycle on that planet is like 54 minutes long, so solar power straight up won't work for like 20 minutes straight. But apparently that raw vulcanite is flammable, so he's managed to power everything with those crappy burner generators. They are surprisingly useful here, mostly because they don't need any water, which is, in pretty short supply. We'll check in on him later. Alright, first things first, we're gonna need some thermofluid. It might look annoying to make, and that's because it kind of is, but this is where it gets interesting. Nothing that uses thermofluid actually consumes it, it just warms it up. Except for one process. I'm terrible at doing one thing at a time though, so here's the plasma stream. All we gotta do is zap some chemical gel along with some rocks. Okay, these thermal radiators take in hot thermofluid and cool it down, losing a little in the process but outputting almost as much as went in. The glow is strangely alluring. And while we were busy with that, the other helper has just crash-landed on this frozen planet in the search for cryonite, and didn't need to search hard because it's right next to him. If it wasn't obvious, we can only find cryonite from frozen biomes and vulcanite from volcanic ones. They're not limited to those 2 planets either, but they're most abundant in totally frozen or totally volcanic planets, and we want abundance. If building a new mine every time one runs dry is annoying on Nauvis, just imagine it on other planets. At least there's water here. We'll also check on him later. Alright, now we need some machine learning data. For that, we'll need some of those rough substrates we made earlier. First, we gotta polish them in this decontamination facility. It also creates some garbage like contaminated cosmic water and scrap, but I don't care about dealing with those. Just stick them in a chest. Now we use the polished substrate to create blank data cards, which then goes into these supercomputers, along with some cool thermofluid, which gets heated up by the process and pumped back into the radiators. I've also made this third one that reformats broken data cards, even though we don't have a way to break them yet. You may have noticed that a lot of these processes are outputting scrap as a byproduct, and yes, that is becoming a pattern. But there's machine learning data. Now we just gotta manufacture it. Not as easy as it seems, though. Mostly because this base is a mess. All of the other things we need, like solar panels and efficiency modules, are already in space thanks to my supply system. So now we just gotta wait for the Cryonite and Vulcanite to show up. This setup is, not the best. But almost 30 hours in, this is still just a starter base. And then suddenly, Vulcanite falls from the heavens. And shortly after, we've got science. It's a mess of a base, but it works. Let's see what kind of base this Vulcanite came from. You know what? As long as it's giving me Vulcanite, I don't really care. Now we've finally got beacons, as well as these big mining drills, which are like regular mining drills, except bigger, and therefore better. And now Cryonite has arrived. This base looks a lot better. It's only got some minor power problems. Well, what matters is it gets us Cryonite. Slowly. That'll let us research logistics systems. I've been doing pretty well with the handful of requester chests that the game gives you, but I'd really like to build my own now. Here's another use for Pyroflux. More efficient glass. 50% more to be precise. It's a good band-aid for dwindling stone mines. Also, we can use beacons now. They transfer 50% of a module's effect to anything in range. This is one of space exploration's biggest changes. These beacons can hold 8 modules each. The only downside is, buildings can only be affected by 1 beacon at a time. If 2 beacons are affecting the same building, it just won't work anymore. I guess in the base game, you surround buildings with beacons, but in this mod, you surround beacons with buildings. Honestly, I like it. Now we can speed up our efficiency modules and help deal with the oil problems that never went away. Playing for so long without beacons and requester chests, I feel whole again. Now I can get lazy and get the bots to make all the supplies for me. No more train wagon abominations necessary. Also, I'm automating uranium ammo. It's almost like I'm plotting something. And while I was doing that, to the surprise of no one, the Vulcanite base stopped working. You see, he didn't leave any power generation that didn't require processing the Vulcanite first. At least the important research is already done. You don't know how good it feels to finally have this kind of power armor on. It only took 30 hours. We've also unlocked coal liquefaction, which I'm going to make so we stop running out of oil every 10 minutes. Basically, I'm just going down a big checklist of errands. After a busy schedule of standing around and doing nothing, one of my assistants show up and I convince him to deal with the power issues on Hothier. There is so little power that offshore pump hardly works, but it quickly speeds up as the boilers come online. And problem solved, at least until that coal mine runs dry. So you may have noticed that this base, what's the word? Oh yeah, sucks. Don't forget, even though it's been over 30 hours, this is still our starter base. This whole thing's purpose was only to get us blue belts, beacons, logistics chests, all the basic amenities of Factorio life. It's not like we can beat space exploration with it. Well, maybe we could, but it would be like running the Indy 500 in a Flintstones car. Point being, we need to expand, and that requires, negotiating with the natives. We're going to be negotiating a pretty wide area, so we'd better be prepared. With a nest like this, all we really need are our laser suits, but they're gonna get a little bigger. Like this one, for example. But you may recall a certain weapon I picked up some time ago. With half the nests gone, it's much easier to clear out the rest. But this was just one nest, and they get bigger. At the risk of making it look too easy, I still need to deal with this every couple shots. And then I get stuck on an invisible cliff. Oh yeah, and then they evolved. We've got behemoth biters now. And here's the bio-bloat gun. With one sneeze, it makes whole swarms of biters pop. It also lags the game, but it's worth it every time. Negotiations successful. We've managed to expand to this whole area. Unfortunately, we're not the only ones who know how to expand. If we don't set up any defenses, this place will be swarming again in no time. And so begins the quest to build 1,000,000 walls around everything. It's mostly just copy-pasting this one pattern about 1,000,000 times. This took me 5 hours, so let's just skip to when it's done. One problem with defenses this far out is how you maintain them. Obviously you use robots, but you can't just put them all on the same network, not unless you're really dedicated. Supplying them manually with bots isn't really an option either, since they blow up all the time. So instead I've made something similar to my auto-rocket resupplier, in which this train keeps everything topped up with random supplies whenever one section runs low. It also carries oil for the flamethrowers. It works okay. It's got some problems, but I'm not gonna bother redesigning it. Also, artillery. I've even wired up the inserter for the artillery shell so it won't fire unless I want it to. By the way, if you're going to be jetpacking over large bodies of water, make sure you have fuel in your inventory. So I happen to be looking through all the celestial bodies we've uncovered, and suddenly this asteroid belt catches my eye. There's something there. It's some kind of ruined spaceship. Obviously, this calls for immediate investigation. Definitely looks like a spaceship. I guess this is where you control it. Unstable, some sections will disconnect when moving. Unstable, I'll say. There's a bunch of stuff in these chests though, like a replacement engine and some spare walls. Seems like we can fix it. Seems to be fueled with this ion stream stuff. Then we fix up the walls and just maybe this thing will fly. So, let's set our destination to Nelvis orbit. We appear to be in spacier space. Well, it works. Except now we're being assaulted by rocks. Those 3 solar panels just can't keep up. We try using our personal lasers and shooting them, but it's not very effective. I don't think this thing is space-worthy. Well, in spite of everything, we get back to our home orbit. It's almost as if this slot was made for this thing. Not sure what we can use it for, but we've got a spaceship now. Hooray. Alright, back to less exciting things. By the way, did you know this whole time the Vulcanite planet was still broken? Maybe it'll work better this time. Here's the thing that turns on the artillery. And yes, I know it says Tog Key Artillery. At the time of recording, there was a bug in text place that swapped L's and K's. It's working again. Kind of. So, now that we've captured all this space, we should probably do something with it. And that something will be base number 2. This time, it's personal. Also, this time we're actually using trains. A big base requires big power. You might recognize this reactor design. Rails and reactors, the only things I actually blueprint across games. The mysterious steam tanks have grown a limb. Well, we got a bunch of train tracks down, time to set up some mines. Probably a better design than this, but whatever. Yeah, so that was a warning for a coronal mass ejection. Basically, it means the sun is angry at us. You may remember those laser beams from the start of the game. Well, it's gonna happen again, except this time we actually have stuff worth blowing up. The good news is there is a way to stop it. This building called an umbrella. Basically, it absorbs ungodly amounts of energy to stop the beams from ever spawning. And that was the purpose of the steam batteries, to try and store enough energy to eat this thing entirely. This one is gonna peak at around 2.4 gigawatts. With our solar and nuclear combined, we've got about 1.8 gigawatts, plus a bunch of accumulator charge, but that's where the steam battery comes in. It'll help us weather that extra little bit. Now that it's mostly drained to the accumulators, the steam starts coming in, but the worst is already over. Just to show you what would happen if this wasn't here. But it only lasts a few seconds. Maybe I should have let it rip through my whole base for the content. Ah well, I got a base to build. I've already set up trains for all the basic resources, so now we just need a place to put them. These are just some basic unloading stations to handle the iron, copper, and stone. And some forges, nothing major. These industrial furnaces are just straight up way better than electric furnaces. And I don't know, I guess I'll put the stone processing up here. Even though industrial furnaces are a million times better, we still need electric furnaces to make the bricks. And then comes the glass, also using the pyroflux recipe again. We'll also need the crushers. This should be capable of outputting 8 full belts of sand. 8 full belts when it's fully speed beaconed at least, but I don't need that kind of production right now. With all the basic resources, we can actually build some stuff. And right now, the most important thing we could possibly build is concrete. Everyone knows it's not a real base unless it's got concrete. Alright, now we're gonna need to make the oil, so let's set up a base next to this little lake over here. I'm also going to set up some coal liquefaction as a backup in case the main refineries ever run out. Here's where the coal train goes. And with a lot of oil comes a lot of oil cracking. Fortunately, the same design for heavy oil cracking works for light oil cracking as well, so we just gotta copy and paste the same design a couple times. Then all that leaves is the fun of routing all the fluids. After all that, here's plastic. It's worth mentioning again how much I like the beacon change. I just never cared for surrounding one building with 12 beacons. Also, might as well build the sulfur here as well. Coincidentally, it's pretty much the same build as the oil cracking, except with inserters on the inside instead of pipes. I'll put sulfuric acid up here as well, and I'll bring the iron in from above. Then I'll load it on a train over here. Same thing with the lubricant to the right. Now, you might be thinking that this train design is a little nonsensical, and that's because it actually is. The last oil products we need are all the fuels. Same build as last time. I've also got a little build for solid fuel from petroleum gas, just in case it overflows. Normally you'd never need anything like that, but this mod uses a lot of light oil, so it is possible to get deadlocked in petroleum gas. Anyway, this is where we load all the fuel onto trains. And the rail network becomes even more insane. Now to actually turn on the oil. This is my favorite part of Factorio. Just turning these big things on and watching them come to life. Why would anyone do drugs when they could just play Factorio? Although it's unclear which of the two is worse. Can't wait to actually use this rocket fuel, but we got quite a ways to go. And by we, I mean me. It's only gonna be like 3 minutes for you. The light oil's already deadlocked, so here's the circuit that burns off the excess petroleum gas if the gas is 95% full and the oil is under 40%. Alright, we're back up here. So now with all the oil sorted out, we're gonna need some circuits. A lot of circuits. Always better to have too many than too few. Now it may seem ridiculous to make this lane 8 belts wide when I have a fourth of the forges required to saturate that, but you're just gonna need to trust me on this one. Regardless, even though this isn't even close to our maximum output, we'll still have some circuits to play around with. So here's where we're gonna make advanced circuits. Here's where the plastic train pulls in. Basically, this whole base is some weird amalgam of main bus and double-headed trains. I'd like to call this design Disciplined Spaghetti. Now you might wonder what brain disease would compel someone to build something like this, and the reasons are as follows. Because I can, and because someone complained in the last video that my bases weren't optimal enough. Personally, I like it when a base straddles the line between insanity and genius. Guess I'll put the heat shielding up here. Conveniently, I can just repurpose the red circuit design. And look at that beautiful routing of the steel belt. Since their supplies are so far away, it always takes the robots a while to build these things. So what's next? Sulfuric acid stuff, I guess. You know when you need to move the whole thing one tile up? Well, at least we get to watch the bot swarm. I can also use the heat shielding design for the RCUs and LDS. This is one of those, put anything where it fits kind of base. But despite looking like a mess, it's actually very versatile. Using rails like this might not be efficient, but it is fun. Even if I did commit the ultimate sin by putting a bi-directional section on a one-way track. Here's the boring stuff like multi-cylinder engines and small electric motors. I also added in a new belt automation facility. This thing is a bit of a weird design though. Some people would also consider turning your main bus a sin. I think I need more roboports. Here's the multi-cylinder engines. They're only used in chemical science, so they're not that exciting. Also, big electric motors. I guess I'll remake all the sciences, even though I'm not going to use them for another 50 hours. We've already got all the stuff to build a rocket nearby, so let's just put it right here. A train will bring in the solid rocket fuel. Yeah, so those guns we found are pretty powerful, so maybe don't accidentally fire them while looking at one of your builds. That's my advice. Nice. Alright, enough joking around. Here's red and green science. Let's squeeze some military science in here as well. We still need coal for the grenades, so let's just bring in another train. Anything goes with this base. All that's left is the rocket science, at least as far as the non-space sciences go. I'm also making a decent amount of modules up here. They're really annoying to make, because they all take something like sulfur, solid fuel, or glass. But remember, we'll need those productivity and efficiency modules for the space science later. Can't make the other tier 3 modules until I get a steady supply of vulcanite and cryonite. All that's really left is the supply area. Oh yeah, I never got around to mentioning it before, but this mod also includes robot attrition, which basically means your logistics bots sometimes just explode. It's not too bad on Nauvis, but it can get rough on other planets. Also, there's a limit on how many logistics bots you can have at a time, and if you go over that limit, your bots start crashing into one another. You can increase it with research, but right now I can only have something like 1,500, so filling this place with supplies is gonna take a while. Finally, cargo sections. They're still complicated and annoying, but I guess I'm used to it now. I'm just gonna let the robots handle moving the cargo sections around. Here's the train that brings the fuel for the rockets we'll put here. Like this one, I'm gonna use it to carry the science into space, but don't hold your breath. Also, building this base took so long the sun is angry at me again, and whoever built this neglected to realize that if all the power is going into the umbrella, those pumps won't work. So much for the backup steam battery. Well, luckily they didn't blow anything up, and we already blocked like 80% of it. Now we can make all the cargo rockets we could ever want, and with that, our base is pretty much done, except not really. We're still only making a fourth of the iron and copper we'll need, and while I could run all through at creation to connect a dozen mines that'll eventually run out, I've got a better idea. And by better, I mean probably worse, but more fun, so yeah, better. Instead of making plates here, what if we made them on an entirely different planet? It might sound really stupid considering how expensive it is to launch a cargo rocket, but we can send the rocket parts from here and just source the fuel locally. Now, a cargo rocket only has 500 slots, and plates only stack to 100, so each rocket could only hold 50,000 iron plates, which if you wanted to fill all our empty belts would require launching a rocket every 3 minutes. Now that sounds like a deal breaker, but we won't be shipping plates, we'll be shipping ingots. An iron ingot can be turned into 10 iron plates, and since they stack to 50, that means we can fit 5 times as much plate on one rocket. Suddenly, sending a rocket every 15 minutes feels a little more doable. All that leaves is finding a good planet. We'll need pyroflux from vulcanite to actually make the ingots, but this planet looks pretty good. It's got tons of iron, and it's got vulcanite. Only problem is it's waterless and 100% threat, but I think I can work with that. So here's a rocket loaded with a ton of supplies, especially ammunition. The gang's all here, so let's go for it. Theoretically, we can make rocket fuel from vulcanite, so even though the planet doesn't have any crude oil or water, we'll still be able to fuel our rockets. Also, the solar on this planet sucks, so we'll need to use nuclear power for all the laser turrets we're gonna put down. Fortunately, this mod has ways to make nuclear even on waterless planets. This doesn't look good. Wow, that was weird. Good thing that didn't actually happen. This place looks weird. After we stash everything in a warehouse, I decide to look around. Thanks to the satellite view, I can scout all this stuff without needing to get close to the biters. There's a lot of them. Also a, pyramid thing. Well, it's gonna be a while until we can see what the heck that's all about. And there's some vulcanite. Pretty good amount of it. Just look at how rich these mines are, though. But we gotta get to it first. This solar will give us at least some power. I get the defenses up pretty fast. We're not producing any pollution, so the biters are leaving us alone for now. I give the flamethrower some oil and fill the ammo belt. That'll be enough to fend off any minor attacks. Here's the condenser turbines doing their job. The water ice comes from Nalvis orbit. It's not a big reactor, but it'll be plenty for our turrets. There's no resources in this bubble of safety, so we're gonna need to expand. And this is how we're going to accomplish that. It's a rocket, filled with 500 artillery shells. I don't think 500 is gonna be enough. The artillery clear all the nearby nests on their own, but now it's time for a little manual override. We're having a great time. Ah, the lag. Still worth it. And that's most of them annihilated. Good work. Now we can go check out that weird pyramid thing. There's biters inside. Of course there's biters inside. Why wouldn't there be? And my assistants appear to have entered at the exact same time and gotten stuck inside one another. And my prescription is 1 dose of Car. There's not much in here except for this, and I have no idea what it means. Hey, free tier 9 speed module. But it's probably important, so I'll take a screenshot. Well, that was interesting. Back to work. Turns out making a giant wall takes a while, but let's get down to this vulcanite. First we need to crush it, then we need to enrich it with sulfur, and then throw the crushed and enriched vulcanite into a furnace along with some water and petroleum gas. I need to apologize for making fun of my assistant's vulcanite design. It's actually kinda hard. After doing all that, it suddenly hits me. I hate this planet. I need to ship in water, sulfur, and petroleum just to get a trickle of pyroflux, and the pyroflux to rocket fuel recipe is honestly pretty horrible. 60 pyroflux for one bit of rocket fuel? That means roughly 66 petroleum gas each rocket fuel. I'd be better off shipping in barrels of light oil than turning vulcanite into fuel, and I'd be way better off just shipping in processed vulcanite from somewhere else. So you know what I'm gonna do? Just leave. This place blows. But it is not enough that I should merely leave, it should also be destroyed. Less dramatically, if I'm not going to be using that surface, I want to delete it so it doesn't lag us or make the save file any bigger than it already is. But to do that, we need to remove pretty much every man-made object on the planet first. Using the fuel from the janky Pyroflux build, we'll be able to bring back the mountain of rather expensive supplies we used to build the wall. But after that, we need to explode everything we're not taking with us. And the biters decided to help us out by detonating our nuclear power plant. They didn't survive. Blowing everything up while also leaving is a bit of a tall order since you need the silo to be intact, but thankfully we have artillery. But if we're using artillery to kill everything, who's gonna blow up the blower-upper? Our friends, of course. They're only a little mad. They decide to ignore the chests, but this is why I made the backup gun. I don't think he's gonna make it. Goodbye. I haven't given up on shipping ingots though. I'm just going to our vulcanite planet Mariel first. It's had some additions since we last saw it, but it's not much better. Also, there's another one of these pyramids we somehow missed. Pretty much the same, except we got an efficiency module this time. Alright, time to build real vulcanite processing. Raw vulcanite takes twice as long as something like stone to mine. Plus, it only stacks to 20, so each cargo wagon can only hold 800. Still, trains are the best way to go. It's been like 60 hours since we first made it, but it's time I explained vulcanite processing. First, we need to crush it. 6 chunks of raw vulcanite turns into 3 crushed vulcanite, but it also has a chance of creating stone as a byproduct, and a 10% chance of making enriched vulcanite. We need the crushed and enriched vulcanite to make the vulcanite blocks, but at a 2-to-1 ratio. If all we're doing is crushing, we'll end up with about 59 leftover crush for every block we produce, and that's where enrichment comes in. With sulfur and 1 enriched vulcanite as a catalyst, it effectively lets us turn crush into enriched vulcanite. Except, it spits out even more garbage in the form of sand, as well as about half the crush we put in. If we just ran it through this process once, we'd still have way too much crush, so we need a way to feed the output of the centrifuges back in through as input, but also in a way that allows the excess through to turn into blocks and doesn't deadlock by either running out or overflowing with enriched. Thankfully, priority input splitters exist. As long as we separate crushed and enriched to their own side of the belt and prioritize the input from the centrifuges over the output from the crushers, it should just work. So now the question becomes, how do we supply it? Well, for the sulfur, I'm just gonna slam down a rocket silo right here. It's my base, I can do what I want with it. Once it's full, I ride it back and land on this pad. Automating cargo rockets like this is pretty easy. From now on, it'll just launch another rocket whenever the landing pad is empty. I get the water delivered from space, and the petroleum gas I can get from core mining and coal liquefaction, since it doesn't really take that much. Now that we've got it, if we want to send this vulcanite anywhere, we'll still need rocket fuel. I know I said this recipe kind of sucks, but if you're already mass-producing vulcanite, it's just the easiest way to get rocket fuel. Plus, it gives us a use for all the stone and sand. We'll be shipping this vulcanite to multiple areas, and that means multiple rockets. And this is where we're gonna receive shipments of rocket parts. This transmitter will tell the home base when we need a new shipment. Putting that down, however, has made me aware that our horrific burner arrangement is no longer sufficient. This base is just too big. Time for nuclear power. The condenser turbines are a little weird to build around, seeing as you can't chain them together like the regular turbines. Absolutely indispensable, though. I'll automate the uranium delivery later, but fuel cells last so long I hardly need to worry about it. So this thing is going to tell the main base when we need rocket parts, but one snag is we don't need just rocket parts, we also need a space capsule for every 100. If all we send is the number of cargo sections and space capsules, those signals will get muddled together with all the signals from the other planets we're going to end up supplying. The obvious solution is to change it to a signal unique to this planet, but then we need 2 unique signals for both the parts and the capsules. That's just a little too ugly for me, so by using the power of mathematics, we will send 2 signals in 1 signal. If I multiply the number of rocket sections by 100, and then encode that to the signal M for Mariel, I can then add that to the number of space capsules, also encoded to M. That signal gets sent to Nalvis, where we can finally decode it by dividing it by 100 to get the number of rocket sections, and taking the modulus of 100 to get the number of space capsules. Doesn't need to be just 2 either, I can fit as many as I want, at least until it reaches the maximum number in Factorio. It's a pretty simple concept, but pretty useful. It's more or less the same reason your computer can turn a giant string of 1s and 0s into a series of instructions. Now that we can send Vulcanite anywhere we need it, it's time for attempt number 2. This is where I'd like to introduce a concept I've decided to call the Space Exploration Shuffle. It's the 20 minutes you spend running to and from your rocket, trying to remember if you've forgotten anything as you get ready to blast off to another planet. And you will always forget something. So the mistake we made last time was going to a terrible planet, so let's go to a good planet instead. I'm a genius. This one's got tons of copper, loads of iron, oil, and water. All around it seems perfect. Except, it's also maximum threat. I'm sure we'll be fine. Well, at least we're not in the middle of the nest. I am so glad for the glacier gun because I am trying my absolute hardest to stop them from getting in here and destroying all of our cargo. Finally, my assistants start moving and take out all the nests. Thankfully, our losses are minor. The center of the planet is generally safe, so we're gonna want to make our way over there. This is looking like fun already. I've already got my eyes on how much land I want to negotiate. Having a bunch of lakes like this makes capturing areas so much easier. After scouting, we load up all of our supplies and drive them towards the middle. Then park it in this horrible circle my assistant made. When you've got an infestation of engineers, they spread fast. They're not going down without a fight, though. This is a PSA about the dangers of distracted driving. The solar here is usable, but you can't beat nuclear. And we don't even need condenser turbines. You never really appreciate water until they take it away. Well, we've got our box of safety. Time to start blasting. They might be, a little mad. We're not even close to clearing this place out. Reloading. Just look at this pile of corpses. You might be able to find when we started firing. Well, this area is cleared, except for all the worms. They're already trying to expand back, so we need to expand first. We're not done, though. I want those iron mines. Well, there it is. I'm not sure how many maximum threat planets I've got left in me. It's hard to believe this whole area used to be swarming with them. After all that excitement, now we get to do the factory part of Factorio. And as anyone knows, the basis of a good factory is a good rail system. This is going to be a pretty big base, so we're going to need some pretty big power. So it's the triumphant return of my gigawatt reactor. It's missing a few turbines since I miscalculated during my space exploration shuffle, but I'll get them eventually. And now we get to set up the miners. We could probably play this run for 1,000 hours and still not deplete any of these copper mines. In contrast, the iron is only 60% richer than it is on Novice, but that's still enough to last us for quite a while. And it's 60% more frequent too, so if we run out we can just blow up some more biters. While I was doing that, my assistant set up some core mining, so I just had a way to put it onto trains. Since this planet has copper as its main resource, this core miner will spit out tons of it. It'll also give us a little bit of oil and pyroflux. Since there's almost no stone on this planet, it'll be a good reliable source of it. That's the mines, now the forges. And if we're expecting to get about 6 to 8 blue belts of iron and copper out of this, we're gonna need a lot of forges. To make iron ingots, we first need to make molten iron. Remember, this is what all that vulcanite was for. Also, since we get pretty much 50% more iron for free using this method, we won't need to worry about the mines depleting nearly as much. The copper design is the exact same as the iron. I haven't talked much about the casting machines, but they take 25 seconds to make 1 iron ingot. If an iron ingot is worth 10 iron plates, that means they make 1 plate every 2.5 seconds. That's about 50% slower than your average electric furnace, and 200% slower than the industrial furnace. So for the level of production I want, we're going to need a lot of these. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Like, over 1,000 of them. And this doesn't even cover the steel ingots. Unsurprisingly, we're gonna need a few more shipments. Anyway, let's make some pyroflux. Pyroflux takes sand as well as vulcanite, so that's why I'm glad we have the core miner up. All of this vulcanite gets shared through the same tube. Now we get to route the iron into the furnaces. And finally launch our vulcanite rocket. It's gonna take a while to fill it all with pyroflux, but the beast wakes. Since we're not actually consuming the molten iron yet, it has a bit of an interesting pattern as it goes. Now we gotta pipe it into the casting machines, and route in the copper. So we're not only making iron ingots here, but steel as well. The steel ingots also take molten iron, but they need coal too, so the design for the iron and copper casters won't work here. You only need like 1 coal for every bar of steel, and this planet has a decent enough supply, but of all the resources, it's probably the most likely to run out. 2,500 casting machines, by the way. All the ingots will flow this way, where we can load them on rockets. We have 1 for copper, 1 for steel, and 2 for iron. And that's because we'll need some iron ingots in space to make production science. For our supply rocket, we can copy the design straight from Mariel. Except instead of M for Mariel, we encode it to T for Taurus. The last thing we need to do is sort out the rocket fuel. Which isn't that hard, seeing as we've already got a decent amount of oil on this planet. It's just like any other oil build, except we only really care about light oil, since it's the best to turn into rocket fuel. And here comes our first shipment of rocket parts. We're gonna use a lot of these here. And our display on Novice is showing us live the number of cargo parts on Taurus. You can even see the number go down as they're being consumed to build rockets. That's everything we'll need, and now it's finally time for the moment of truth. It's time to twist open that molten metal spigot. This is what we've been waiting for. This is why we're here. These sweet, sweet ingots. Just watch them roll by. That is beauty. It's a shame these casting machines are still placeholder graphics, but who knows? Maybe by the time we beat this run, the finished model will be out so we can see Taurus in its full glory. Also, not to spoil the moment, but I kind of underestimated the flow limitations of these pipes. The steel casters aren't getting any molten iron. But I get it to be good enough. I would like to call this piece of art, Why I Needed a 1 Gigawatt Reactor. And we're pretty much done here. I set up some janky supplies so the walls don't run out of repair packs and stuff, but then it's back to Nalvis. Now that we've got ingots, we gotta turn them into plates and put them on the line. It's not complicated, we just need to put the ingots through an assembling machine once. Although the recipe to make copper plates is faster than the recipe to make iron plates, which is a little bizarre, but whatever. But here we go. Ah, it's so beautiful. This is what the last 40 hours were all about. And just watch that trickle of circuits turn into a torrent. Everything is fully saturated and all is right in the world. Now this would have been a good place to stop as we complete our ground base, but we've got one last thing to do. If you'll recall, we don't have Cryonite on rockets yet. It's not the worst looking build, but it could still use some work. After another shuffle, it's off we go. For once we have a landing pad. I need power, but not like that much power. Unfortunately, I don't have a 2x2 blueprint on me, so I gotta build it. It's very ugly, but just say it gives it character. You know how you always forget something going to other planets? Well, I forgot more rails. The Cryonite is similar to Vulcanite in that it has a mining speed of 200% and only stacks to 20. To actually get the Cryonite, we mine it, crush it, steam it, forge it, build it, fuel it, zip and ship it. Alright, but to actually talk about how it works, it's kind of similar to Vulcanite, except not as complicated. It also starts with crushing, except it's a 1-to-1 ratio instead of a 1-to-2. And yep, it still gives us sand as a byproduct. I'll be getting most of the Cryonite from trains, but I want to prioritize the output of the core miners. The reason it's not as complicated as the Vulcanite is because we don't need to route the output into the input. The next step is making Cryonite crystals. Way simpler than enriching Vulcanite. We're good as long as we make sure it doesn't overflow with water. The belts may look complicated, but it's just a way to deal with the sand byproduct and prioritize sending powder to the furnaces, since they need both the powder and the crystals. The Cryonite rods also take some heavy oil, but just like the Vulcanite, it's only one. There's a tiny amount of oil on this planet we use to make the heavy oil, but there's no way we could fuel any rockets with it. That is Cryonite rods. So, talking about fuel, there's a problem. We don't have oil or an abundance of coal. We don't have pyroflux either. Theoretically, I could ship in Vulcanite blocks and make some fuel that way, but it's so wasteful. The core miner makes some, but not enough. We need at least 1,000 rocket fuels to launch one rocket. It seems hopeless, but that's where this extremely hilarious and extremely horrible recipe comes in. We can make rocket fuel from nothing but water and a copper plate. It might sound overpowered at first glance, until you realize the crafting time is 500 seconds. It would literally take one of these 2 weeks to make enough fuel to launch a single rocket, so naturally we need a ton of them. Let me tell you, you only use this recipe when you're desperate. It draws more power than anything else, and this is with maximum efficiency modules, but it does make rocket fuel. It's almost hard to believe. We don't have uranium here, so I'm setting up a way to request it similar to how I handled the cargo sections. In fact, it's the exact same. I'm combining enriched and unenriched uranium into the same H signal. So this cryo build isn't as fast as our Vulcanite one, but I don't think the demand for Cryonite is all that high. Oh yeah, those big things to the left. I guess I never got around to explaining them, but they shoot meteors out of the air. Anyway, we're done here. I'm putting our first shipment here because we need the Crinite to make Tier 3 efficiency modules. And here's automating the uranium. Now, I hate to say it, but this video is coming to an end. This mod is enormous, and we've still only scratched the surface, so there's no way I could fit it all into one video. And retain my sanity, at least. I wanted the milestone of this video to be the completion of our ground base. We've still got a lot more to add to it and lots more planets to visit, but the next video will be all about our space base. So, I'm not trying to coerce you or anything, but if you're perhaps interested in seeing the second part, you might want to subscribe. Purely for your own benefit, of course. Regardless, this video took a gargantuan amount of effort. Between the 100 hours to play it and the 2 weeks to edit it, it's become readily apparent to me why no one's tried to make a video series like this before. For every hour I played, I got less than a minute of footage, and I would have had zero motivation to do any of this if it weren't for all you lovely patrons and all you viewers out there, so thanks for watching. I hope to see you again soon.